The salty air always carried stories, but the one about the old St. Jude's lighthouse was different. It wasn't just a fisherman's yarn. It was a warning whispered on the wind. They said old Silas, the last keeper, never really left. That his grief for his lost wife, Alara, who was swept away by a rogue wave, tethered his spirit to the lantern room. As a historian, I'm drawn to such tales, to the line where folklore and fact blur. So I packed my gear camera, audio recorder, and a healthy dose of skepticism and set out for the coast. The path to St. Jude's was a treacherous, winding trail of mud and jagged rock, disappearing with the high tide. The lighthouse stood like a lonely sentinel, its white paint peeled and scarred by a century of storms. The air grew heavy and cold as I approached, the silence broken only by the crash of waves against the cliffs below. The main door was locked, rusted shut, but a ground-floor window, its glass long gone, offered a dark invitation. I hoisted myself through, my boots crunching on debris and dried seaweed. Inside, it smelled of salt, decay, and something else. Something faintly floral, like wilted roses. I started on the ground floor, my flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. The keeper's living quarters were a time capsule of sorrow. A single chair faced a cold hearth, and a layer of dust covered everything like a funeral shroud. But on a small, rickety table, one object was strangely clean, a small, intricately carved wooden music box. Curiosity got the better of me. I lifted the lid. A tinny, melancholic melody filled the silence, a tune I didn't recognize. As the last note faded, a soft whisper seemed to slither from the shadows. Ilar dot dot. It was faint, barely audible, like the sigh of the wind. I froze, my heart pounding. My recorder was on. I had to be sure. I played it back. Nothing, just the music box and the distant waves. Was my mind playing tricks on me? Shaking it off, I began the long spiraling ascent up the cast iron staircase. Each step echoed in the cavernous space, a rhythmic clanging that seemed to count down to something. The air grew colder with every level I climbed, a damp chill that seeped into my bones. Halfway up, I saw them. Scratched into the curved plaster walls were names. Dozens of them. Sarah, Michael, Thomas, Julia. Below each name was a date. These weren't visitors. It felt like a memorial or a list. Then I saw the last name, freshly etched as if with a fingernail. The plaster dust still settled at its base. It read David with today's date beside it. A cold dread washed over me. I told the old man at the bait shop my name was David, a fake name I always used for these excursions. No one else knew. How could it be here? Panic began to set in. The whisper from downstairs no longer felt like a trick of the wind. It felt like a greeting. I almost turned back, but the historian in me, the part that craved answers, pushed me forward. The lantern room was my goal. The heart of the lighthouse and the heart of the legend. I forced my legs to move, my hand gripping the cold iron rail until my knuckles were white. The staircase seemed to stretch on forever, the spiral a dizzying vortex pulling me upward. As I neared the top, the floral scent of wilted roses returned, stronger this time, cloying and sweet. It was accompanied by a new sound, a soft rhythmic creaking, like a rocking chair on old floorboards. I reached the final landing and pushed open the heavy door to the lantern room. The space was circular, surrounded by thick glass panes that overlooked the churning gray sea. The giant lens, the lighthouse's eye, sat dormant in the center. And in the corner, shrouded in shadows, was a rocking chair. It was moving back and forth, slowly, deliberately, empty. My breath hitched in my throat. I raised my camera, the logical part of my brain screaming for documentation, for proof. As I focused, the chair stopped. The silence that followed was absolute, heavier than anything I had ever experienced. Then a voice, clear as day, spoke right behind my ear. "You came." I spun around, my flashlight beam wildly cutting through the darkness. Nothing. I was completely alone. "Who's there?" I yelled, my voice trembling. The only reply was a soft, mournful sigh that seemed to come from all around me. The air temperature plummeted and my breath plumed in front of my face. The glass panes began to fog over, not from the outside, but from within. On the pane directly in front of me, a single word was slowly traced by an unseen finger. Stay. My skepticism had evaporated, replaced by pure, primal fear. This wasn't a ghost story. It was a trap. I scrambled for the door, my hands fumbling with the latch. As I pulled it open, a powerful, unseen force slammed it shut again, the boom echoing down the stairwell. The rocking chair started moving again, faster this time, its creaking a frantic, mocking rhythm. The whispers started again, but now there were more, a chorus of faint, overlapping voices, all murmuring the same name. ELARA dot dot ELAR dot dot. I looked at the walls of the lantern room. More names. Hundreds of them, covering every inch of the curved surface, their edges glowing with a faint, spectral light. My gaze fell back on the fogged window pane. Below the word, stay, another word was being written. My name, not David, my real name. Liam, a name I hadn't spoken aloud to anyone on this trip. A cold, bony touch grazed the back of my neck. I screamed, throwing my weight against the door, the wood groaning in protest. I don't know how, but the door finally gave way. I tumbled out onto the landing and didn't look back. I flew down the spiral staircase, tripping, catching myself. My own panicked breaths echoing with the chorus of whispers that seemed to chase me from above. The names on the wall blurred as I passed. They weren't just names. They were the names of all the people who had come before me, drawn in by the legend, by the mystery. Drawn in by Silas, who wasn't just mourning his lost wife, but was trying to replace her. He wasn't a grief-stricken spirit. He was a collector. I burst out of the ground floor window, landing hard on the rocky ground. I didn't stop to check for injuries, I just ran. I scrambled up the muddy path as the tide began to creep in, the whispers finally fading behind me, replaced by the roar of the sea. I didn't stop running until the lighthouse was just a speck on the horizon. I never recovered my gear, and I never went back. Sometimes late at night, when the wind howls, I can almost hear a faint, tinny melody. And a whisper, carried on the breeze, calling a name that isn't mine. I know my name is on that wall now. I'm just another part of the story, a warning for the next curious soul. Some doors are meant to stay locked. Some stories are meant to remain untold. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Stay safe out there.